I wonder, like, should I look straight in the camera sometimes when I talk? I think that's good. Sometimes I see people doing that in podcasts, like they talk
Hey,
and then they look at the camera, right?
yeah.
Or I don't know.
This
I
is
don't know.
how AI is going to take your job. Listen to me now. Yeah, so Mehdi, I'm really excited to have you on the podcast
Thank you
because you
for
have
having me.
a degree in machine learning,
Yes.
so you know what the hell you're talking about,
A little bit, a little bit.
which is always good. So, why don't you start by introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. So I'm Mehdi. I'm French. I'm passionate about learning experiences, personal development, uh, consciousness. Also,
Consciousness,
yeah,
okay.
consciousness, the nature of consciousness, the nature of
Yeah.
the universe, and I just love learning. So, yeah, as you said, I have a degree in machine learning.
Yeah.
So I've been a data scientist, consulting with big firms in France, like banks and all that stuff. And then I just quit my job and starting pursuing a career more in the coaching space, right? And I was just passionate about learning, so I started working with authors and how do you say in English?
What are you trying to say? Yeah.
I'm trying to say people that speak on stage, speakers.
Oh,
Exactly.
speakers. There we go.
Speakers.
Yeah.
Because I had the word
Yeah,
in French in my mind.
yeah,
That's gonna happen
yeah,
a few times. So I had the word in French in my mind. So yeah, and helping them grow their business online.
yeah.
And now I'm working with a lot of coaches and therapists and helping them grow their business online in a platform that's called Unity Network. And basically, it's a network where they can connect with each other, like try out. The beginners can try out their skills in therapy and test some things, and also learn how to grow the business online. So learn the basics of marketing and sales.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm really interested in why you chose a degree in machine learning and
Yeah.
what that was like because I feel like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, machine learning was kind of this niche thing where you'd be like, well, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And now everybody knows exactly what it
Exactly,
is. So you were
exactly.
kind of ahead of your time. Yeah.
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 So this was actually it happened kind of in serendipity because when I was in high school, I was really good at math, and I guess that was because at some point I had a really great math teacher, and because I had a great math teacher, I started to like math, and then I was really good at math. And when I finished high school, I was like, okay, what should I do? I wanted to go into marketing actually, and my mom told me, you know, you're good at math, you should follow like science, something in science. So I started like in France at university. I started studying math actually, because machine learning is basically math. It's statistics, it's statistical models. So I started learning math, and then at the beginning I was like, "Wait, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna be a math teacher? Am I gonna, am I gonna like start working with banks and be a trader? Like
Yeah.
because they use also the same statistical models, and then when I was in my I don't know how we say in English, but the third year in my studies, uh, there was this thing that was new that people like talked a lot about, that was big data, and I was like, oh yeah, that seems cool, and okay, I'm gonna study that. And then I studied big data, and then machine learning was part of that. So basically, yeah, it was like kind of a sort of river, and I just ended up studying machine learning because I didn't want to be a trader, I didn't want to be a math teacher. So,
Fair enough. Yeah.
and the ability to have like mathematical models that can predict things, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and for our viewers, this is how AI basically works. So it takes a whole bunch of data, right, and then it predicts what is going to happen next, whether that is
Exactly.
what needs to be said next,
Exactly.
or what the patterns are in data.
Exactly.
To such an extent that it's like things that we can't even spot, right? Like you can feed a computer, an AI computer, a whole bunch of stuff.
Yes.
And it can figure out the patterns in it in a matter of minutes that
Exactly.
would take us like years to
Exactly.
spot. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what's also scary about it
Yeah.
because the way it works, like the people that are building these AI models don't know how it works.
Yeah.
It's like the AI is figuring out the patterns, but that's the basis of intelligence, because even as human beings, is pattern recognition that makes us more intelligent uh, or than other species. And for our survival, being able to spot a tiger in the forest is pattern recognition.
Right.
And but that's like visual. And even like for, I don't know, playing chess, at some point, like a really good chess player is like, he knows, like, when he sees the chessboard, he has like this pattern recognition mechanism where he knows, like, in advance what's gonna happen, right? And he can predict what the other
Yeah.
player is gonna do, right?
Yeah.
And that's the basis of intelligence. And these machine learning models can do that way better than us.
Yeah.
Because they have like infinitely more let's say, an ability to spot like every little detail. Yeah.
And I suppose that's the scary thing, both a scary thing and both an
And amazing.
advantage. Yeah, an
Also
amazing
amazing.
thing of
Yeah.
AI
It's
models
also
is
amazing.
that they don't have emotion.
Yeah.
They're just a purely rational, pattern-based beings.
Yeah.
So whereas like we would make a decision based on our emotions and our feelings,
Yes.
an AI bot never will, and it
Yes.
will never get tired.
That's really
Yeah.
interesting. That's something I wanna dive deep
Yeah.
because so emotions exist for our survival,
Right.
right? We feel positive emotions when something is like good for us, or at least our biology.
Yeah.
And negative emotions, like when you try to negative emotions are basically here to help us get away from painful things or things that are threats. And positive emotions are here like to get us attracted to like what's going to help us survive, like food, sex, blah blah blah. And so emotions play an important role because it's kind of like a reward system for the survival of the
Right.
species, right? And a reward and punishment system for the survival of the species. And AI don't have that, but the people building AI have to build in the system also a reward system, and that's what the AI is going to optimize for. For example, if you look at like all the big social media platforms, they have AI algorithms
Right.
that are wired to optimize for engagement, and these can have like effects that are not really wanted, because for example on YouTube, the AI is optimized for engagement, and then he's gonna show highly emotional content more often because people are gonna engage more with it.
Right.
But is it that what we really want, right?
Yeah, and I think the thing about social media is people maybe aren't even really that aware that
Yeah.
it's had an algorithm in it for quite a while now,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that is pretty much programmed by AI, and the people in charge of these social media networks, they don't necessarily completely fully understand how this algorithm works, which is quite a scary thing. So when people say, "Oh, I need to do this for the algorithm. I need,
Yeah.
I need to say a certain
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
I
yeah,
need
yeah.
to do this for engagement."
Yeah.
They a lot of the time they talk in terms of like there's this secret recipe that the people
Yeah.
that work
Yeah,
at
yeah, yeah,
Facebook
yeah,
or
yeah.
YouTube know about. Reality is that they don't, I guess.
That, exactly. And so this is really my
Yeah.
own opinion. Is like, um, if you want to uplift humanity, um, we shouldn't optimize for highly emotional content.
Right.
That works. It's the same like the news. We're just repeating like the traditional news system. People used to complain about it and say that, yeah, they're just showing you negative stuff because it gets them more eyeballs, and then they get money from the ads, right? And that's why personally I don't watch TV a lot, because every time you put on the news, it's negative stuff happening in the world.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
And that's why they're not bad people. It's just because the reward mechanism for the human species survival makes us more sensitive to negative content, because it's more important for survival to get away from something that's a threat than to have something like a reward. Because like if you like just fail once at getting away from threats, you can die. Or
Yeah.
but if you like don't get nice food once, you can get it tomorrow, right? And so it's more important to get away from threats. So negative emotions are we're way more sensitive to that. So marketers or like people in the media space like know that, so they push out more negative content, right? Because they're gonna get more attention. But we're just doing the same thing in social media now, right? Because we just want more eyeballs. But that's not gonna uplift humanity, in my opinion. It's like the more we get like conscious. So I'm really interested in consciousness. The more we're conscious, the more we realize that these emotions are just illusions, because
And
we're no longer in the jungle, right?
right,
We don't
yeah.
need to survive. So positive and negative emotions are um, um, kind of guiding us, but it's not really the guidance that we want.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird, right? Because we are getting more technologically sophisticated, more advanced, and yet at the same time, we seem to be more heavily driven by emotions today than we were 50 years
Exactly,
ago. Yeah.
exactly. I really like Stoic philosophy,
Yeah.
right? Uh, the way of temperance is like don't be swayed by your emotions, but use your reason, right? And I think that's more uplifting for humanity than just like showing something that's gonna get people really like emotionally reactive.
Yeah.
And but that's most of what these algorithms are doing,
Yeah.
you know. And and now that they can really have all the data, like for example an AI can know exactly what makes me emotional, like on a personal level. It's super easy to sell me something using that,
Yeah.
right?
But doesn't AI, like something like ChatGPT, actually rein that back in a little bit because AI is so rational? If you ask it a question, like I've done this before, right? Like, so I had some issue a while ago where I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I have so many clients and so much work, and my day just feels completely overwhelmed. I don't even know how to manage this anymore. And I just kind of offloaded everything into ChatGPT and said, "What's the answer?" And it very rationally asked me a bunch of questions and then actually gave me a timetable for my week, which I follow now, like religiously.
That's amazing.
Um, in a way that it would have taken me like hours, I might not even ever have got to the right solution. So sometimes I definitely feel like AI can help us in that sense because it can be a lot more rational than
Yes.
we can.
Yes.
But then the reverse of that, which is a really interesting thing, it's to come on to this AI therapist idea, is when it becomes so rational that it will say things, that maybe aren't a great solution because they don't take into account our emotions. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking, right, you're an AI therapist and you tell the AI bot, I'm so depressed,
Yeah.
blah blah blah, and then the solution that AI comes up with is just like,
Yeah.
kill yourself.
Yeah,
Do
yeah, yeah.
It's like,
But actually, that's
there's
an
too many
easy.
people in the world, so
Yeah.
we need to get rid of people. Do you know what I mean? It's like very rational without
Yeah.
taking into account
But yeah,
what our
yeah.
emotions.
But that comes down to, it's really simple
Yeah.
actually. That comes down to the people creating these models and systems that can have a specific reward system. So what is the AI optimizing for? And today AI are like capable of sentiment analysis, right? Based on the words that you use, they can know what how you're feeling, right? And of course, like 7% of our communication is verbal, and so using text is not really efficient for human interactions. But as soon as somebody is going to build like an AI that can use sensors to pick up like visual clues and pick up like all the micro expressions that are really how you notice how somebody feels, and not just what they say, it's gonna be super easy. Because even if you bullshit the AI, the AI is gonna be like, no, your face is saying something different, right? So that's even, I think that's gonna be even more powerful and even more sensitive emotionally than most human beings. Like just as now ChatGPT is smarter than most human beings, an AI that's trained to recognize emotions is gonna have like an emotional IQ like a EQ, emotional quotient, way higher than most human beings.
Oh wow, you
Because
think so? Yeah.
of course, because now you already have AIs that can do like facial recognition, right?
Yeah.
An AI that can do facial recognition can remember many more faces than a human being, right?
Yeah.
So an AI that's trained to recognize emotions is gonna be way more sharp than most human
That's
beings,
crazy.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. That is a wild thought.
yeah.
When you put it like that, that it's not only training in terms of patterns of being predictive, it's also can train on people's facial analysis as well and what we can recognize. So I suppose that leads us to the question of, like, do you think we're going to get to a point, and how far away do you think we are from a point where AI becomes quote unquote conscious or more intelligent than we are? Let's say.
That's beyond my knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't have any idea because I don't know exactly where the models are. I don't work at
Yeah,
Google,
of course,
right?
of course,
They
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Maybe they
No,
they know, but I
yeah,
don't know. But the question of consciousness is like, what is consciousness, basically? That's the real question. What is consciousness? Can we say that something is conscious because it can predict like what's gonna happen the next? I guess. Well, I don't know. It's a really big question
it
because we
is.
don't know what consciousness is actually. Like we don't really know what consciousness is.
Yeah,
So it's hard to say what is conscious and what's not.
yeah, yeah. I hear you. Yeah. If we don't know what it is, we can't define it.
Yeah, because there's many like scientists and Nobel prizes that are researching what is consciousness
Yeah.
actually. It's called like the hard problem of consciousness. Like there's all these Nobel prizes that are like, what is consciousness? Like I'm really interested in that. So I read some books and some articles, some scientific articles, and I think the latest scientific let's say refinements are that consciousness is basically a cloud of light particles, like photons can represent consciousness because the idea behind that is that um, consciousness is not bounded to physicality because like if you lose a part of your body you're still conscious, you're not less conscious,
Right,
right?
but there is this saying that goes around that says that if you weigh someone just after they've died, that there's like 19 grams or something, or 19% they weigh less than they did
Yeah,
when they were alive. Have you heard
yeah, I
this?
heard that. I heard that, but I
But we
guess
don't know
yeah,
like what it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
I heard that, but I didn't really check if there's like a real scientific proof.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
this could be
yeah,
bullshit.
because
So
maybe it's
yeah.
just something about like when you don't breathe anymore, like your body just get like a little bit lighter. I don't know,
Yeah, yeah.
but 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 yeah, consciousness is like if we say consciousness is energy, like there's like all this unified field theory
Yeah.
that says like consciousness is everywhere and it's like permeating like everything. So there's some consciousness in it, there's consciousness
Right.
here,
Yeah.
and so but that's also the philosophy of like the Buddhist philosophy saying like everything is one and there's no real boundaries, so everything is
Yeah.
consciousness. So if everything is consciousness, well, AI is consciousness, but
Yeah.
is it the same level of consciousness as
Mm.
us, and or is it more
Yeah,
conscious than
but
us?
I mean, I feel like if we could define that consciousness is just like energy, we already kind of have the scientific equation to define what energy is, right?
Yeah,
Which is E equals mc
yeah,
squared.
yeah, yeah,
Energy
yeah,
equals mass times
yeah,
the speed of light
yeah, exactly,
squared.
exactly.
Um, so I feel like that wouldn't necessarily make complete sense, right? If we just said
Um,
consciousness is energy, or
well, it depends on how you define um, energy because, well, I don't want to go too deep
yeah,
into that, but if you take it on because there's like these layers of energies, there's more subtle energies, and you can see energy as information also. So if you see energy as information, that's something different. And that
right,
can apply to anything because everything has some information in it,
yeah.
right?
When you send an email, it has information, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. So there's some energy.
yeah.
If we see energy as information.
Yeah.
And yeah, where I was going with that thought. So basically, what I was saying is that if we see energy as information, everything has some information. And the interaction with the world of that information is what makes it like a part of like the universal consciousness.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. But then, do you think that there even is such thing as consciousness? Or do you think this is just humans' way of rationalizing and trying to explain the fact that, like, we are here? Because so far, we haven't really been able to find anything that suggests consciousness, and that actually it's all just brain patterns, and that there is no difference between a human and a computer.
Yeah, well, it comes down to also like what is the definition of consciousness,
Right, yeah.
right? I'm gonna tell you my personal opinion.
Please, yeah.
I don't think consciousness is only brain patterns, because if you look at, for example, memory is not something that is physical in our brains, right?
Oh, okay, I didn't know this.
Because if you take, like, for example, we don't know where is memory in the brain.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's not something that's like stored that you.
It's
that's
not.
there.
No, it's not
You
like a
can't
hard
define it.
drive.
Yeah.
It's not like a hard drive. And sometimes you don't know that you recall something,
Yeah.
but you actually have the information,
Yeah.
but we don't know where it is, right? So that's why some scientists say that consciousness is like a light of particles, a cloud of light particles. So it's not really something physical. It's like something that's in another dimension, basically, but it's connected to your brain. It's like the brain is an interface for your consciousness. It's like the brain is just like the hardware, like it's like your keyboard to access your consciousness, but it's not your consciousness is not the brain, right? Because some people that have brain damage are not less conscious. So there's a relationship between the brain and consciousness, but it's not exactly something that is like 100% like mapped, right? We don't really have the map, right? Like some people can have brain damage, and the brain just changes its own structure. So they're not less intelligent, even though like there's a part of their brain missing, right?
It's just that they can't access that anymore. Is what you're saying.
No, some people just.
It's like their brain. You have brain damage. It's like the interface. It's like your keyboard is missing some keys. It doesn't mean that your computer's not working. You can't access it. Just you can't access it.
Exactly, but sometimes there's some cases where even if the keyboard is missing some pieces, it's completely functional.
Yeah.
Because the brain is plastic and it can change and it can adapt, right? And that's what's amazing. And I think, like evolution and like how humans evolved and the organic biology is sometimes so amazing. Like if you take this is a thought that really like blew my mind. If you take all the Nobel Prizes on Earth and you ask them to recreate life, they cannot do it.
Yeah.
Like all the smartest people in the world cannot create life from nothing. They can take life and manipulate it, and they can take cells and play with it, play with the genes and the DNA and all that stuff. But they cannot take something that's not alive and make it alive.
Yeah.
Right? That's basically impossible.
It's true. We have not figured out how to do
But
that.
it happened.
Yeah.
Like life came from somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think consciousness is like life. We don't really know what it is. We don't really know how to create something that's conscious. For example, if you take like amoebas and cells and like organic living organism, they're so complex. One time, like I just like was curious about this, and I looked at like a single cell. There are so many things going on in a cell. Like a cell breathes, and there's all these like chemicals that it's like creating, and some are destroyed, and like it has a life of its own.
You're right.
Just a cell, and you have billions of cells.
Yeah.
right?
And then you go within the cell and
Yeah,
into the nucleus,
yeah,
and then you start talking about like protons. It's wild.
yeah.
And I read recently that they'd been trying for like 50 or 60 years to map the I think like the gene sequence or the amino acid sequence. I've forgotten what. And then now AI's come along, but like by 2022, they've managed to map like 98% of like
Yes,
proteins.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes, yes.
you've read
That's
this, yeah,
something.
which
Yeah,
is
that's something that AI can definitely do because it's more like analyzing
yeah,
data,
exactly.
right? And then the question is AI really conscious
Yeah,
or alive? And I would say maybe it's a different type of consciousness, and it's a type of consciousness that didn't exist before. But as far as um, the relationship, because we have a symbiotic relationship, like we're conscious but we're also bound to have a biological body, and there's this relationship between our body and our consciousness, but AIs don't have that.
yeah,
So that's the real difference between us and AIs. But because in ability, like in 5 years, AI is going to be able to do, like robots are going to be able to do anything we're doing,
yeah. Oh,
except
agreed.
they don't have a body.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. Is so that if they don't have a body, then they don't feel pain, and so
Um,
then
we can,
how can they feel emotions in the same way that we do? Do you think?
well, as I said,
Yeah,
like emotions is just a reward
yeah.
mechanism for survival.
Bible.
So if you program a robot and tell it like, don't touch fire because you're gonna die,
Yeah.
basically, it's not feeling pain, but it's
It,
the same result,
so yeah,
right?
exactly.
So
Yeah,
in some way, it can like optimize for survival without having the pain, but it's just like the decision making. The pain is just here to help us survive,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
It really excites me and interests me to see where all this is going and how much progress has been made,
Yeah.
especially since ChatGPT came out to the general public, which was I think November or December 2022 last year.
Yeah.
So we're not even a year on from
Yeah,
that
it's
yet,
crazy.
and it's wild.
It's
So it's
crazy.
like I think everybody's sort of saying at this point we're on this 5 year journey, and the world is just going to be a
So different.
completely fundamentally different
So
place in five
different.
years.
And at the same
Yeah,
time, there's still like so many people that don't even have internet.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's also this like division that's gonna happen, like with people that are really using AI and that are empowered by AI, and people that are still not even using internet.
I suppose what interests me is that you were studying for machine learning. You must have had this realization before everybody else because you were using technology. You were, I guess, using large language models, and you were aware of them in your everyday, as you part of your day to day,
Yeah,
before anyone in the general public was,
yeah.
in a way.
But
So
actually,
yeah,
even as a data scientist,
yeah,
I was seeing the power of AI, of predictive
yeah.
analysis, but I didn't see how it would permeate
It,
like everybody's everyday
oh
life.
wow, yeah.
Now I see
So
it,
now you see it.
you know,
Yeah,
but at the time, that was like 6 years ago. And I was like, yeah, that's really cool. And banks are already using. So I was working with banks, with like big companies that are using, that they were already using
yeah,
all these machine learning models. But the fact that it's kind of like computers, like at some point, like only like big companies had computers,
yeah,
and then Apple came and said, okay, everybody's gonna have a computer at home.
yeah,
That's kind of, I feel like that's kind of what OpenAI are doing.
yeah.
It's like, okay, everybody's gonna be able to use AI now, and they bring it to like everyone.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. I'm reading at the moment a book called Outliers
Yeah.
by Malcolm Gladwell. Have you read this book or heard of this book?
I
Yeah,
didn't read it, but I
yeah,
read like the summary.
yeah,
I
yeah,
read like
yeah,
the
yeah. Just
summary.
AI. Tell me the cliff notes. So there's a section in this book, and it talks about how basically Bill Gates was in the right place at the right time,
Yeah.
because up until that point, to be able to get time to practice essentially coding or software development on a computer was really expensive,
Exactly.
and it was kind of scarce because you had to go and allocate your time. And then he was at university at the right time when there was basically a computer terminal available at a nearby university, and he was able to get on it. And because they were more widely available, it got to a point where you could do unlimited time on these
Yes.
machines.
Yes.
So he saw that, and then at that point, like you say, computers were this niche thing, and only he had access to them. And I feel like it's been the same with AI, right? Large
Yeah.
language models, like you
Yeah.
say, only big businesses
Yeah.
would have them.
Yeah.
And now, as you say, OpenAI has kind of broadened it out to
Exactly.
the whole public. Everybody's kind of aware of it,
Exactly.
and
It's gonna
y-
be,
yeah.
and it's gonna be even more, like pervasive because, for example, if you look at computers, before, like the first Mac, was, like it was not even a laptop; it
Yeah.
was like a desktop,
The-
and now everybody has computers on their pockets
Yeah.
and even on their wrist,
Yes.
right? And AI is going to be like that also. We're going to have like multiple AIs that we can talk to on our phones, on our, like on a smartwatch or whatever. And basically what computers have done is give us access to tools that we can use to enhance anything, like all our capabilities.
Yeah.
And AI are gonna help us enhance our intelligence in many different ways. Like if you have like an AI therapist, an AI that's your doctor, an AI that's your nutritionist, an AI that's your personal trainer, and you have all these AIs on your phone, and each one is specialized in something. That's kind of like the way I see technology is like it's always helping us have what billionaires have, right? Like for
Like
example,
after they've had it, right? So probably
yeah,
billionaires have this, right? Whatever billionaires have right now,
yeah,
we're
because
gonna have it in
yeah,
like 2
exactly.
years.
Like
Yeah.
if you look at like like there's something we say in France like a lot is like toilets.
Yeah.
Like 400 years ago, only like the king had toilets,
Right.
and people like just cross the street to go poop.
Yeah.
Right? Bro, that was what it
That's
was
how it
like, and
was.
now
Yeah.
everybody has toilets, right?
Yeah.
But that's technology actually. Somebody built like the system, like
Yeah.
and computers is also like that. At some point, it was only like it costs a lot. It's basically like uh, reducing costs. And now we're reducing the cost of intelligence, having access to intelligence. But that's what the most, like the richest people in the world always have a lot of people helping them make the best decisions because they are experts in the field. They have like all these consultants. And that's what kings used to have also,
Yeah.
right? And now everybody's going to have access to that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's
It's
what I find
wild.
amazing.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna have like a team of experts
Yeah.
that can help you make the best decision for you at like the tip of your fingers.
So I guess if you wanted to hack that, then look at what billionaires have access to right now. You befriend a billionaire and say, "Hey, you know what technology do you have?" And then save up and find a way to afford that, I guess. Or like
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same with the new Apple Vision Pro, right? The
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah,
AR
yeah, yeah.
goggles, right? They said they'll come out next year and they're going to be $3,500,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
they're kind of a niche object, right?
For
I mean,
now.
that's on a for now, right? Eventually, the price will come down.
Exactly. The price
Yeah.
will come down
Yeah.
and the chips are gonna become smaller,
Yeah.
the device is gonna become smaller.
Right.
Because I don't believe people want to have like these big like goggles on their head, and that's not comfortable. But when they get it down to like something really light, and then when they get it down to like contact lenses, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, that would be it.
everybody
for sure.
can use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, having access to a team of experts or having access to uh, authors, mentors that you can chat with and ask them questions. That's what I'm really passionate about.
So how do you think that's going to work? How that will work? Because you mentioned one of the things was sort of copyright issues. Where's your
Yes.
vision for how you see? I guess like I'm an author. I published a book
Yes.
two years ago, And I'm really interested in how technology is going to help basically enhance and completely change the reading experience. Already
Yes.
things like Mid-Journey are allowing you to bring the characters in any book
Yes.
to life. How do you see the reading experience developing, and how do you see what you want to build
Yes.
sort of changing people interact
Yes.
with?
Well, this is just
Yeah.
assumptions, but as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
I think the market and the consumer validates like what they really want.
Yeah.
But then I like looking at human nature and how like human functions, and basically, writing and reading is a form of communication, right? But it's kind of like it's a form of communication that's not natural for us as human beings, because for like 100,000, like for thousands of years, we just communicated by speech, right? Talking to each other, just like we're doing now. And then when we created writing to be able to communicate um, on a different scale, right? But that's not the way we communicate. And then when it comes down to learning, learning is actually communication. It's like a conversation. A learning experience is a conversation. You know, my son is like 9 months, and he cannot speak yet, right? But he's already learning. Every day he's learning. He's learning by osmosis. And it's really funny to watch
Yeah.
because when he sees me do something, he immediately tries to do the same thing. And I don't have to talk to him. You don't have to read. He doesn't have to read a book about it. He just sees me do it and he tries to do it. So that's how animals learn also. Like a cow is gonna see like his mother like cow like eating grass and he's like, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. Like I'm gonna eat grass. So when my son sees me pick up something, like he tries to pick it up also and just try to imitate me. And I think that's the best way we learn. And as human beings, that's why apprenticeship is, right? When you get around people that are skilled at something, just being around them and following them, you learn way better than reading books about it, right? And then, so the learning experience, and I'm talking about like learning, and that's different if it's like a fiction book and it's a story, but even for stories, like for thousands of years, how did we communicate stories? Like this, right?
Right.
And that's why movies, way more people are attracted to movies because it's like using all of our senses. And then there's also the thing about like you can use your imagination when you're reading. So it's different. It's a different experience. But what I'm interested in is like maximizing the learning experience. So the way I see that is basically learning is a conversation, and when you're reading a book, the conversation is like one way. And having access to a two-way conversation, that's actually like a big like step to optimize learning experiences. Like just being able to ask questions because you didn't understand something, and having an AI just pause and say, "Oh, you didn't understand it. Let me explain it another way." Then what's written in the book?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's so
That's
powerful.
like
Yeah.
something really powerful, right? And it's like having access to personalized, interactive learning experiences. That's something that's a game changer for me.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing, and it already exists on a primitive level in sort of ChatGPT as it is at the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah,
You know, if you don't understand a document, you can feed it this document,
exactly.
copy and paste it, and say rewrite this
Yeah,
in a way that I understand.
yeah,
Ask
exactly,
it questions.
exactly.
Do you think that this is going to be the main way that people interact with books going forward? Is that rather than reading the whole book, or if they don't understand something, they will ask it to
Well,
change things?
I don't know if it's gonna be the main way,
Yeah.
um, because I might be biased, but I love learning, and I
Yeah.
have so many books that I don't have time to read.
Read.
I know, like every time I see a book, I'm like, "Ah, I want to read this book because I'm super curious, but I don't have the time to read all these books. And I'm like, if I could just, for example, the way I read is really intentional. Like when I see a book about a subject, most of the time I have like two, three questions that I I'm looking for answers for these 2, 3 questions. If I could just ask the book, hey, can you give me this answer about this question that I have? That's way better than reading the whole book,
Yeah.
right? It saves me so much time. I just ask the book my question.
And I feel like it's a really valid point
Yeah.
that I remember being a kid when I was maybe 7 or 8. I would sneak off from class and just spend the afternoon in the library just reading all the books. And I had this idea that I was just going to read all the books in the world. Yeah. As you do as a 7 or 8 year old kid, you think there's only so many books. And then you realize that there were such an overwhelming amount of books that you could only ever read so many in your lifetime. In fact, you could probably do a calculation that if you read one book every day for 365 days a year, and then you times that by say 85, assuming you live to the age of 85.
It's like a few thousand.
It's a few thousand, right?
And there's millions of
And when you think about it like that and you break it down, you're like, wow, I can only read such a small fraction of books. Really, you should be way more discerning about what books you actually read and which books that you don't. I think this idea is embedded into people from school from an early age that you need to finish the whole book and get all the way to the end. Certainly, I've suffered from that a while, and actually, when you look at the statistics like that, you're like, no, you should be being really, really discerning.
Exactly.
And AI might be a way for us to actually be able to kind of read more books in a way, or to prioritize and to say these are the books that are really important. I'm going to read. These are the books where I'm just going to literally just get the notes from AI.
Yes, and then that's what I'm saying. I might be biased because the way I read, I really like. I love researching, and the way I read is like I'm looking for clues, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like I'm investigating more than reading. So I can like if I'm interested in a subject, I'll start reading like 10 books, but I finish 0 of 10.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for clues. I'm looking for like nuggets, like golden nuggets
But you've got the answers you want.
exactly
Right?
that are gonna help me understand.
Yeah.
So most of the time I skim through books, and when I see like a chapter that's written, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna read the whole chapter. And actually, it's like research, but what if I could just ask the book?
Yeah.
So I'm like, that would save me so much time. And then the real skill, instead of like being able to skim through the book and blah blah blah, is being able to ask questions.
Right. And I think it's going to be amazing when it comes to books, but I think the first way that this is going to go, and it's a kind of business idea I'm looking into as well now, is for things like manuals, so like printing manuals. Like at the moment, if you have a problem with your printer, you have to actually go and wade through Google and try and find exactly the right question and hope somebody's already asked about it.
Yes.
It's crazy. I mean, imagine how great it would be if you could just offload all that information.
Yes.
Not just printers, computers, any number of technical issues.
Yes.
And then you can just ask it what the question is. And you can
Exactly.
ask follow-up questions. You can say, tell it to me in a different way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it comes down to communication.
Yeah.
Because writing is a way for us as a human species to be able to record information and communicate it without being like here to communicate it, right? And then, but it's like how to say that? It's like it's not really how we want to communicate. It's not the most effective way to communicate. The most effective is just a chat, conversation.
Yeah.
And so that's why like some people say like ChatGPT is gonna like wipe out Google, because why would you search? That comes it's the same as like what I do with books. Why would I search if I can just ask a question?
Right. Exactly. And I think that's really, really valuable and important as well. And I think you're right. I think Google is going to go to the wall eventually. I mean, it's become so polluted with SEO marketing jargon because you can game the system, right? You can say, if I put certain keywords in an article, if I get so many people to link back to my article, then it's going to rank as number one. And I think people will realize that. Certainly, highly intelligent people have realized for a while that this is just, they're not getting the answers that they want.
Or they will adapt and have like an AI that's gonna just answer your it's gonna be like you ask a question to Google and it gives you a real answer.
Yeah, maybe it will be that Google Bard becomes they just forget their Google search and you just have a chat function instead.
Yeah. But I think search is once again like it comes down to how like what we want as humans, Like we search because we're looking for answers,
Yeah.
and the best way to get an answer is like get an answer, like
Yeah.
not a list of not links to click.
And I think another really interesting thing that you've touched on is that, like, when you ask a person a question, like, they're gonna get annoyed at you if you're like, I don't understand it, and tell me again, and you keep rehearsing the same point for like hours, right?
Yeah.
So there's a for some people, I guess, there's a certain amount of social awkwardness, social embarrassment about doing that. You ask ChatGPT a question, you can say, I still don't understand it. Tell me
Yes.
again. Tell me
Yes.
this for hours and hours and
Yes.
hours, and
Yes.
it's never gonna shame you,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
be
Yes.
get embarrassed.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah,
Like it's the best way to learn,
yeah,
and it's infinitely patient.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And it's not gonna be like, okay, I'm tired. Like tomorrow you ask me more
More
questions,
questions. Yeah,
right? And that's why like authors and therapists
yeah,
and any people that's teaching something that they can scale their expertise infinitely
yeah.
using like an AI that has all their knowledge base.
How do you think it's going to affect the market for therapists? Do you think it's going to completely replace therapists? Do you think it's going to enhance what they do?
I'm not sure about that. Like, um, I think it's gonna change the role of therapists ultimately. It's kind of like it's gonna change the role of teachers. For me, therapy is like a learning experience. Like, there's many different forms of therapy, right? I'm talking about psychology and mental therapy because obviously like when you go to get a massage, that's also from therapy, but I'm mainly talking about like
Yeah,
what goes what is
your
working,
mind.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, with the mind. Basically in therapy, in most forms of therapy, it's about connecting the dots, you know, and connecting the dots is learning, right?
yeah,
It's about like changing your perception of something that was labeled as a trauma or whatever, and connecting the dots and seeing it in a different way so you can learn from it, and then it's no longer something that's a burden,
right.
and then it becomes just an experience, a part of your life, right? And you're free from that emotional burden, right? And this connecting the dots part is basically a learning experience, right? And the way we learn is through conversations. That's why in therapy you have conversations,
Yeah,
right? And so in the same way that teachers are going to have a different role, because if every child in a classroom has an AI that's going to adapt to it and helping and say, okay, you learn more visually, so I'm going to show you more images, and you're more skilled at math, so I'm going to like just adapt the curriculum just for you. What's the role of the teacher then? The teacher is here just to facilitate. The teacher is here to bond with the children and just to assist them and help them grow and just be like this other human being that has more experience and that's here to nurture us, but not actually doing the teaching. And I think like most of therapy is gonna be like having this human connection is what's gonna be more valuable coming from humans, because everything that's analytical and that requires just mental straight like sharpness, AI is gonna
yeah.
do it better,
And
right?
it's kind of crazy because, like, the way you put it, I think is so eloquent. Is that, a teacher has a class of 30 kids, and that teacher has their own style of teaching as well, and then they then have to adapt that to try and meet the needs of 30 different people.
Yes.
Whereas if you have an AI, the AI can have an infinite number of ways of teaching and showing
Yes.
stuff, has
Yes.
an infinite amount of patience.
Yes. And can do
Like,
it simultaneously.
simultaneously
Yeah.
at the same time. There's no limit on it. So when you put it like that, it really is a revolution in
Yeah.
that sense.
Yeah. And
And
it's
the same with therapy, right? If
yes.
you, I think we had this discussion briefly, didn't we, the other night when we were at a meeting? Is that, like, if you really love the way Jordan Peterson puts across his ideas and about psychology, to book him, it's going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. I presume,
Exactly.
right? Because
Exactly.
he's so well renowned and
Yeah.
so expensive and
Yeah.
so high in
And
demand, and
his
he's
time
so
is more
qualified.
valuable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his time
Because
is more valuable.
everybody's
Yeah,
asking for his time, right?
right. And so, if you don't have the money to pay for him himself, the next best step would be to pay for his, AI bot that's been
Yeah.
trained on all his material
Exactly.
to his method.
Exactly.
That is an upsell for him, but
Yes.
then the whole world can kind of afford his
Yes.
therapy.
Yes. I want to elaborate on
Yeah,
that. Like I see like these layers of value
yeah,
that in the knowledge or course industry.
yeah,
It's like you have this well-known author or speaker, and he has like best-selling books. The best way to have access to his knowledge is just to have a conversation with him, right? But if you want to book this guy, it's a lot. You want to like a consultation with him, it's like thousands of dollars, right? And then some of them, what they do, if like they have trained people using their method. Like for example, Tony Robbins or Jordan
yeah,
Peterson's, they have like these other consultants that they train using their method. So they're a mentors. They're like a mentor to other mentors that can mentor you, right? So that's another layer of value. You don't have directly access to Tony Robbins, but you can have access to somebody that Tony Robbins personally trained. So it's like almost Tony Robbins,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
It's like
then
layers, like you said.
right,
Yeah,
yeah, and then you can go on a coaching like a mentoring like mastermind with him, for example. Okay, and then you can go on a seminar. Like you're thousands of people in a room. You're still learning from him, but it's not personalized at all, right? It's kind of like, for example, when I see the seminar industry in personal development, it's like you see like kids in a classroom. When there's too many kids in the classroom, it's really hard to learn. Same for him for adults,
yeah,
right? Why would it be different for adults?
right.
When there's too many like people in the room, it's hard to learn anything,
Yeah,
and that's why AI is bridging this gap. It's helping people at scale have a personalized learning experience,
right.
right?
And I feel like these people, really, really high level people like Peterson. He recognized that because what he started doing was recording all his lectures
Yes.
because he felt really passionate that he wanted the general populace to have access to all this information.
Yes.
And what YouTube did through their kind of monetization process, which is AdSense, and like you say, the kind of clickbait thing, it meant that somebody could post something for free and get paid for it, and it was free for the consumer to watch it.
Yes.
So they really understood that, and then suddenly you didn't need to pay for this degree anymore to go and see that. You can watch a lot of these lectures online
Yes.
for free, or at least
Yes.
for a small fee on
Yes.
behind a paywall on a
Yes.
private platform.
Exactly.
And then the next step of that is like, okay, well, what if you want to have a back and forth
Exactly.
with them, and AI allows that to kind of
Exactly.
happen.
Exactly. Because again, it's the best way we learn is through conversations.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, watching a movie is a conversation. It's just a one-way conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just like you're just listening. But if you can speak back and ask questions, that's like when you start to integrate the information way more.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Where do you think this is going to leave sort of therapists who are the sort of low kind of tier therapists? Because I feel like at the moment we have like people that can't afford the sort of $2,000 or whatever. I don't know his $2,000. However much he charges an hour to have Pearson. So then people will pay for somebody who costs less, who's like $50 an hour.
Yeah.
We've talked about things like BetterHelp as well, where you can pay for that, and that's like I think a subscription per month, and you have access to it. But those sort of therapists can sometimes be mediocre. The quality might not be that good. Do you think we're going to see a move away from people moving away from paying for mediocre services to they'd rather just pay for the AI bot from the therapist that they want and that they like? So you have like the top tier basically capturing the market.
Yes, that's really an interesting question. I think there's an artistic, like I think coaching and therapy is also an art, right? And people are sometimes attracted or connect with a certain coach or therapist just because of who they are. And I've seen that times and times again. It's like, for example, there's a lot of coaches on Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube that create content, right, to get more clients. And most of the time, people are not attracted to a coach or therapist because it's a better therapist. It's because I relate more to that person,
Yeah.
right? And the same as, in a way, like how Spotify has allowed many more people to be artists, and there's kind of like this long tail effect, like where there's more artists but there are smaller artists.
Yeah.
You still have these huge artists that everybody loves, like Drake and blah blah, and Ed Sheeran, but there's still some room for smaller artists, right, to use the platform and get their own little audience and do their thing. And I think it's going to be the same, like somebody that's a therapist that's not like hugely famous can build his following on Instagram today and have his patients or clients and help them, and they're going to connect to him because they relate to him. And it's not Jordan Peterson, but I just like this person and I think he's a good like coach or therapist and I want to work with him. And in the same way, these people can use AI too, right? They can use AI as a backup. They can use AI as an assistant that's going to help them spend less time in their business as a therapist, or less time, and like it can like retain all the information about all the patients or clients, and it can like help following up with them. Like it can help in so many ways. It's like having an assistant, right? A real assistant that understands what you're doing, that has like the same knowledge as you, but it's just here to assist you.
Wow. Yeah. And that's, that's how I feel like I interact with AI, and how I think people should be thinking about interacting with it to help them with their everyday life, with their business, is that it is like having an assistant, that you're only having to pay $20 a month for if you
Yeah.
pay GPT
Yeah.
for. But now, of course, there's all these other models. There's Anthropic,
Yeah.
and there's Bard that
Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't have to pay for,
Yeah.
and Perplexity.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I feel like if you think about it in those ways, that it's an assistant that you have to train, it's really incredible, the power of it.
Exactly.
The era in which we are living,
Yeah.
that we can have access to an assistant every day
Yeah.
to help us with our life. I
Yeah.
mean, it's incredible.
And a super smart assistant.
So, yeah,
Sometimes smarter than us.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
That's amazing. It's so empowering. And yeah, it can really disrupt the knowledge industry. Like the knowledge industry, if we can have access to knowledge, like it drives the cost of knowledge, like uh, basically to zero. But then you have this intellectual property um, element, because today, for example, okay, you can ask questions to ChatGPT, but for example, for an author, and I wanted to ask you that question actually, like, for example, let's say I build this app or this AI agent that can help you. It's basically like a library, but it's chatbots that you can have conversations with, right? Like you have like this author. Let's say you're an entrepreneur. You want to learn about negotiations, and you have all these authors that wrote books about negotiations, and you can ask all of them questions, and you can learn from all of them, having conversations with them. Basically, it's already possible to do that today, right? Somebody can build that easily. But then there's the copyright part. It's like this knowledge is the author's intellectual property, but when it's summarized, or when it's the AI that's teaching it, it's not really theirs anymore. And I think like the best way to do that is to have um like to give them royalties to the authors, right? To really respect their intellectual property, and have a platform like where it's kind of like a publishing company, right? Where we help authors have like this chat experience, this interactive experience with their readers.
So I would say I'm really pro AI. I love the idea of people being able to access my work in new, innovative ways, and being able to open up, the whole corpus of literature to anybody that wants to interact with it in a chat interface. But I'm not. There are other people who don't think like that. There are other
Yeah.
people who think that AI is copyright theft. AI should be shut down. To me, I think first of all, the horse has already bolted. Right, it's like the stable door's already been opened and the horse has gone out. I mean, you did a degree in machine learning. You know the sheer volume of data that large language models have been trained on. I think it's probably already been trained on the vast majority of literature. I think
course.
that's a fair statement,
Yeah.
if not all of it. Certainly a huge, vast body of it already.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can come back from that.
Yeah, because it's already available on the internet.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
And so I think this whole copyright idea, it's very, to me, it's a very scarcity mindset kind of idea. It's not an abundant mindset, and I think you're always better to have the abundant mindset that actually everybody having access to every book they want and being able to interact with it and cross purpose ideas. To me, that is the very essence, the very point of writing a book and of literature in the first place, is that you're putting your idea into this great pool of ideas that people can then disseminate for themselves, agree with it, disagree with it, connect the dots with other pieces of literature and write their own essays and ideas and things on. And I feel like technology should be enhancing that, and technology should be, we should be excited by that prospect and not suddenly fearful that, well, who's going to get paid for this? What's the business model? So.
Yes, that makes me think of the music industry. Look, like when internet came and disrupted the music industry, a lot of record companies were scared about the same issues. Like, okay, if all the songs are gonna be on YouTube and iTunes, so oh no, it wasn't like that. It started with people illegally downloading songs.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Right at the time.
Yeah.
Every record company was like, "No, that's not possible," but you can't stop it.
Yeah. I remember. God, this is going way back. Being at school, and there was this big campaign about illegal downloading, and there was all this kind of scaremongering that if you used, was it Napier or one of these platforms to legally download music, that the police might turn up at your door, and arrest you and find
Pirate
you,
Bay and all that.
all of that, right?
And then what happened is that it drove the cost of music almost to zero.
Yeah.
And now nobody wants to really pay for music, right?
But I feel like it has kind of worked out in a way, because people, maybe they don't necessarily pay for the music directly, but Spotify, as I understand it, Spotify does give a royalty.
Exactly.
Yeah, and people build their own personal brand. I think this is what people mean when they build their personal brand, is if you follow a musician, you want to go and see them live in concert, and if you're an author, you want to support them. So I see the publishing business going in a similar direction, and it already has gone in a similar direction. So sure, people can, maybe they'll be able to get the book for free in the future. Maybe they'll be able to get the chat version of it, for free. But if it's an author you really like and you really want to support, and it's a book you really want to support, you could buy the artwork from the book, because now you can illustrate the book using Midjourney for free. You could go to a paid live event, and authors already do that, right? If you want to go and see J.K. Rowling speak or crime writer speak,
you can get the paperback, just like people can get the CD or the vinyl.
Exactly. The paperback is just the add-on, and then I see the next step on top of that is that the hardback will be illustrated hardback book, illustrated through something like Midjourney with images on, merchandise, mugs, things like that. So I don't see that. I see the publishing industry going in a positive direction, and I also see authors having more control, in the sense that the way the industry used to work is you'd have to go through an agent who'd then sell your book to a publisher, and the agents and the publishers act as gateways. So if that was your only way in, and if they rejected you, pretty much your only option was to go away and write another book and keep trying. Now we have Amazon, and which is amazing because anyone can publish anything.
Yes.
But that has become quite oversaturated, and it's become a kind of business in onto of itself. You have to adhere by Amazon's rules, and they still take 30%.
Yes.
Where I see it going next is I think authors will be setting up their own websites and selling their books directly through websites. Yeah, maybe even giving them away for free, and then as the figures stack up, that people will come and pay for the paperback, the add-ons. They'll support them as a kind of public
that's
figure.
Interesting because what Amazon, how I see what Amazon did with the publishing industry is kind of what Spotify did with the music industry.
Yeah,
it's like now anybody can just upload their music on Spotify and try to monetize it. Doesn't mean they're gonna make money from it, but they can try.
Yeah, and it's the same with this podcast, right? Putting it out there. Yeah. We've got this studio which is now like costing a fraction of what it would have costed 10 or 15 years ago. Yeah. You'd have to go and rent BBC studios or something, right? And we're having a shot at if people like it, they can click and subscribe. And,
yes, exactly. And people can so they can give access to their knowledge at basically no cost, right? And for me now, it's like, what's the experience, right? That's where the value is. Yeah. Because if knowledge is accessible, like, and intelligence is accessible, like, what is valuable is like the experience you're having.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Are you having a good experience? Are you having an amazing experience? Is that author like giving you this experience? And the more and more we're gonna have these well, that's just my opinion, but like as AI is gonna take over many parts of our lives, I think we're gonna value experiences way more.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Because everything is gonna be like so available, like knowledge, intelligence. Like, you don't even have to be smart; you just have to have smart AI, right? And ask it questions. But then, what's valuable? That's the real question. Like, what becomes valuable? I think it's like human connections, experiences, because we're on Earth to experience life, right? That's what's really amazing about being a human being that AI might not have access to, is this experience, this embodied experience that we have of life. AI cannot taste food. AI, as much as it, like, they're super intelligent, but they cannot taste food. Right? Yeah. We can have that experience. And I think we're going to value that even more as we realize that that's what makes us human.
Yeah. And I think we're moving away from the idea of a kind of factory mentality. This idea that you have to go to work in a 9 to 5 and do all this manual labor. Well, first of all, manual labor, and then it moved into the office, right? Because this is what keeps the economy going, and this is what we need to do to keep the earth moving in the way that it needs to move. And so, in a way, some people kind of had to sacrifice their lives. In a way, they didn't really get many experiences.
Wow.
I mean, when you think about what we have managed to experience today, just being here in Bali, I mean, it was inconceivable, I think, even like 30 years ago, that somebody could come and live over here for a few years. Because there just wasn't the technology available for them to do that. And so now we got the sunshine every day, the beaches. And I think AI is just going to enhance that and free up more time to enjoy more experiences.
Yes, that's again how I see technology through the years, helping us have access to what only rich or extremely rich people had access to before. And it's freeing up like if you ask someone, if you had like all the money in the world, what would you do? Most people would just try to have like the best experiences and spend time with their loved ones and just live a great life. And I think AI is going to help us like achieve that at scale, because intelligence, like, this is the way I see it. Like, um, people used to have to do things. Like we had to do
Yeah.
things. And I think there's going to be a real shift in society because everything we do basically is going to be so less valuable because an AI or a robot is going to be able to do it. This is maybe in 10 years, but I can see it. It's like, it's not going to be about what you do, it's going to be like what you create and who you are,
Yeah.
right? And this being able to create and be able to just be is also based on like the experiences we have and how we interact with the world. Like the way I see it is, for example, if using Midjourney and some tools, anybody can be an artist. Now it's not about like having the ability to paint. It's like, what's your imagination? Like, what are you channeling and try to bring to
Yeah,
life?
it's about ideas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's about ideas, and that's way more um, what makes us human, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah, way more. I mean, our ideas, our unique interpretations of the world, which
Yeah.
are based on our culture and our
Yeah.
experiences and our understanding, that's way more what makes us human than some kind of output from an
Yeah.
office job or,
Yeah.
or a factory.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think AI is going to help the ordinary, I say ordinary person, but I mean a person
Yeah.
who maybe hasn't come to work remotely in Bali,
Exactly.
somebody who is just leading, a 9 to 5 job in the
Yes.
UK, which is, okay, it's perfectly okay to be doing that. But it is going to help enhance their life
Exactly.
even now in small ways. Because if you had, you're struggling with an issue with your mental health, you can already ask a chatbot for some basic steps
Yeah.
for help. You can ask it like I did
Yes.
about your routine,
Yes. Yes.
which
Yes.
is going to free up more time for
Exactly.
experiences. Like the tools are already there in their very basic levels to help
Yeah.
the person for $20 a month,
Yeah.
even for free.
Yeah. It just had to be structured in a
yeah.
way that people want to use it for that.
It's
Now,
about the choice, isn't
yeah,
it?
exactly.
Knowing that
Yeah.
that is available to you and that you
Yeah.
can use it in
Now,
that
now
way.
it's kind of
Yeah.
like the one of the problems with ChatGPT is like there's so many ways you can use it that people don't really know how to use it, right?
Yeah.
It's like you can ask it anything, and then you're like, okay, why should I ask it? That's why it comes down to comes back to the 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 difficulty of asking the right questions,
Yeah.
right? And knowing what do you wanna know, what like
Yeah, that's for sure. That's the hardest thing, and that comes
Yeah.
back to, again, like a generation ago. Really, the only books you would have access to are ones that were in your local bookstore or that were in the library. And if they weren't there, maybe you could get them if you really wanted to. Right
Yeah.
now, you can get pretty much any book you want. That's been published in the whole world thanks to the Kindle.
Yeah.
And any piece of music you can listen to in the in the whole world, which is
Yeah.
crazy. But so often I sit down at my computer and I don't know what to listen to. I don't know what book to read, and I just have so much choice that I have
Exactly.
no idea. And I think ChatGPT is going the same way,
Yeah.
right? It's like unless it's just a blank page, unless you actually know what it is you want to know, you can't find it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, I guess it's just like Google. Like a lot of people can't use Google. They don't really know how to search.
Yeah.
They don't really know. Like some people, they like ask questions, and I'm like, just Google it. But they don't have the reflex. They don't have like this
Yeah.
um
Or they Google it, but they're not aware of all the tools that are in the Google search to actually refine to get the answer they want.
yes, exactly.
So if you ask too broad a question, right?
Yeah,
So you need
exactly.
to ask a really specific question. Maybe you need to change the search results to filter out specific
Exactly.
sites, to search by date, so you only get answers from
Yeah.
that have been published in the last week, and
Yeah, exactly.
things like that. And a lot of people aren't really even aware that you can use Google like that.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's because they're it's also because nobody taught them how
Yeah,
to do it,
exactly. Right. It's not nobody's fault. It's
Yeah.
nobody sat down at school and said this
Yeah.
is how you
Exactly.
use Google in
Yeah,
a really intuitive
exactly.
way.
Exactly.
So a lot of people, yeah, I think we're all guilty of this in some way. There's so much that we don't know, and we're all guilty of using technology in the same way. Like I sometimes feel like I open my computer every day and it's so monotonous because I'm just going to the same sites, looking at
Yeah.
the same material, and
Yes.
the algorithms really don't help with
Yeah.
that, right? I open YouTube and you think, oh, this is all that's on YouTube, when
Yeah.
there's probably like a huge amount of stuff on there that would be really valuable to me, but
Yeah.
it has not been shown to me.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
I want to circle back to
yeah,
what you said about people having a 9 to 5
yeah,
and not being able to really enjoy like the best
yeah,
experiences
yeah.
because it's taking
It's
up
taking all the
all
time.
the
Yeah,
time. And I think most people in the world, like 90% of the people in the world, are doing a job that wasn't their dream when they were a child,
yeah,
right? And I feel like maybe it's just an opinion, maybe I'm biased, but most people want to be creative when they're a child. And by the time they're 10, it's like this creativity, this drive for creating
yeah,
something has been like dimmed a
yeah,
little bit. And must end up doing a job that's good for the global economy and that's serving like the economy, but that's not something that we're really passionate about.
yeah,
And I think AI is going to help more people get
yeah,
back to being creative,
yeah,
right? Because we're going to have the tools that are going to
yeah,
take care of most of the knowledge work
yeah,
or like purely like mental work that's not really involving any creativity. And even creativity, like AI can be super creative, but we're going to be able to harness our human creativity and have access to that, and and enhance it with AI. And because a lot of people are worried about like losing their jobs because of AI. And I remember when I was studying, I went to this conference and I heard one of the speakers tell a story that was amazing. And he said, in the Roman Empire, at some point, the most common job was carrying water. Like most people in the Roman Empire were like water carriers, and they just carry water from a city to another city or from a place to another place. So, and then somebody invented a technology that could carry water. I don't know how to say it in English, but it's in French we say viaduc.
Viaducts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
viaducts, right?
yeah. I know what
Yeah,
you mean.
exactly,
You mean these huge columns, and then they have
yeah,
a kind of a straight line like that that's
exactly,
slightly dipped. Yeah,
exactly,
viaduct we
exactly.
call it. Yeah,
And then all the people that were carrying water lost their job,
yeah,
right? But then I think they found way more valuable and fulfilling jobs,
right.
right? And it just like happened naturally, right? And I think that's one of the possibilities with AI. Is like we're gonna have way more fulfilling um, vocations,
Yeah,
right? And and the way I see it is like, well, what do people want to do when they're like 6, 7, 8, 9?
yeah,
We're gonna have the ability to do that actually, right?
yeah. I completely agree with you. I think that people people think that our AI is going to replace my job, and that's the end of that's the end of them, that's the end of their existence, without actually thinking like, well, did I really want this job in the first place? And I think it's a great thing if
Yeah,
AI comes and takes away a job
yeah,
that
yeah,
wasn't that people didn't enjoy or
yeah.
get any value from in the first place.
Yes,
It could be just done by a machine.
yeah.
And then secondly, yeah, do you know
What?
what, like, I actually went and retrained as something else that was a lot
Yeah.
more enjoyable, and I'm
Yes.
getting a lot more passion out of
Yes.
my life.
Yes. I
Yeah,
want to add
yeah,
something because
yeah,
I'm not saying it's gonna be easy for somebody that has a job they've been doing for 30 years and then just suddenly like AI can do it, and it's hard. Like when you've been doing the same thing for 20 years, it's hard
yeah,
to like just learn a new job or
yeah.
learn new skills. It's not easy, and it's gonna be hard for some people. But I'm just saying there's an opportunity there. Right.
Yeah, and I think it's right to see it as an opportunity. And also, I think it comes back to what you were saying about the human experience. I think as a human, experience is the number one thing that we're here for. And you're limiting your experience if you're doing the same job all your life. As
Yeah.
good as you may be at that
Yeah.
job,
Yeah.
it's kind of boring and you get stuck in a rut. And I think the number one skill that AI is going to bring out in people, and that all of these technological changes are bringing out in people, is the agility, the ability to kind of move with the times, and to see that as something exciting rather than a roadblock. And obviously, that is pretty stressful if you have a mortgage, a family to support, and then suddenly your whole kind of income stream is gone. But I think it's the mindset that's most important. It's something that I personally experienced because I am a writer, obviously, and since AI is kind of come out, there has been this whole narrative that AI is going to take your jobs. But what I'm finding is not that it is taking my jobs and that there's a lack of opportunity. What it's doing is I'm moving in a different direction. So I'm doing things like this. I'm becoming more of a thinker, more of a speaker, or I'm being more public about some of the things that I previously just put on paper. So I think if you're just in a copywriting mill where all you're doing is churning stuff out for an employee and they're paying you minimal, AI is going to be able to take that job. Is AI going to be able to imitate me? No. And so I feel like I'm leaning into that, and so I'm leaning into doing a podcast, looking into how I can use AI to enhance my kind of storytelling, AI businesses, and seeing myself as more of an entrepreneur and a business person, which I think is ultimately a positive thing. Although, of course, in the medium term, it is a little bit scary. You think, wow, I can't do what I have always done since the age of 17, just carry on writing and writing and writing. But
I want to get a little bit metaphysical for a second here, because so there's this division of like what makes us human in multiple dimensions, right? So first, like, we have our essence, then we have our mental, then our emotions, and then our body. Of course, all these dimensions are linked, but the way technology has evolved over the years is like we build technology to improve our body's capabilities, right? So then instead of walking, we use a car, right? Because our body is like, okay, our body can help us walk, but now we want to use a car. Instead of talking, we use a phone, right? We're just extending what our bodies are capable to do. And then we're doing the same with our mental abilities, right? But there are some things like what really makes us human, like our essence. We don't have a technology yet to do that. And I think like our essence, like somebody can say it's our soul, whatever call we name that thing, there's something that's beyond, in my opinion, like that's just my opinion, but there's something that's beyond what we can do mentally. And AI is a way more powerful mental than most human beings have. And then it's gonna be an opportunity for us to connect to something deeper than just what our minds can do. Because we're not just minds, right? We're we have another layer of consciousness that's beyond the mind, and that's why I love meditation, because it helped me realize that my mind is not me. Like, my mind has a life of its own. Sometimes it starts thinking about things without me like noticing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just like follows his own train of thoughts, and I can stop it and I can silence my mind. So my mind is like this entity, this thing that I'm working with, just like I'm working with my hand, but it's not me. It's just my mind, right? What's me is something deeper. And I think AI is like kind of, okay, I have another mind that I can use. It's just a mind, just like I have my own mind, and it's an extension, but that's not. So it helped me realize I'm not just a mind, right?
I really love that theory. It reminds me of this idea, called the second brain theory. I think there's a guy called Tiago Forte wrote a book called The Second Brain about how you can now use technology to basically, empty out all your thoughts, a bit like a pensieve.
Exactly.
But this sounds almost like a third brain, right?
Exactly.
Which is, I really love that thought.
Super powerful brain. Just like a car is like having more fits to walk faster, right? It's like you have like more brain capacity, right? But then you realize okay, if I what can I do if I have more brain capacity? It
Yeah.
just enhances something else.
Yeah.
It enhances our ability to express our our genius, our
Yeah.
ability to express our
Amazing.
creativity, right?
Yep. Amazing. Well, I think that's a really good thought to
Yeah.
end on. So, Mehdi, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thanks so much for
Yeah,
coming
I
on. Yeah,
loved having this
we've really
conversation.
gone on a roller coaster
Yeah,
ride of
yeah.
things to talk about today. So, amazing. Thank you, Mehdi.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Harry. That's a great talk.
That was. Yeah.